Today's video podcast is a reminder to make sure any amendment to a contract that resolves certain contingencies also include a waiver of that contingency. For example, whenever a buyer and seller negotiates repairs during the option period, the amendment should always include a waiver of the remaining leftover right to terminate under that option. You don't want to go through the pain of repair negotiations simply to come to an agreement and then a few days later, buyer terminates under his right to terminate under the option. You've got that one, but there are other contingencies that sometimes get missed. For example, buyer makes his purchase subject to the property appraising for a certain price, using paragraph 3 of the appraisal addendum. The property doesn't appraise, so buyer has the right to terminate under that paragraph. Buyer takes all the necessary steps to terminate, and instead of terminating, the buyer and seller do an amendment to the purchase price. They change the purchase price, down payment, and loan amount using the new appraised value, and when the amendment is signed, everything is changed. However, no mention of a waiver of buyer's right to terminate under paragraph 3 of that addendum. And if that contingency is not yet expired, buyer still retains the right to terminate for failure of the property to appraise for that stated amount. To prevent this from happening, use box 9, titled Other Modifications of the Amendment, to waive the right to terminate pursuant to that particular paragraph or any particular contingency in the contract. There are other areas of the contract where all seemed good, but because the contingency still existed, had not yet expired, buyers still had a way to get out. For example, under buyer approval, the definition of buyer approval includes the availability of the loan terms specified. If buyer writes the contract contingent on getting a 30-year note at a 2.87 interest rate and instead gets approved for a 3% interest rate, even though buyer appears to have been buyer approved, they still have the right to terminate the contract all the way up to the end of buyer approval contingency period. So when buyer's lender or buyer's agent tells you buyer has been approved, it is prudent for you to confirm that what they have been approved for are the rates and terms according to the contract. When extending the closing date by amendment, note that the closing date paragraph states that the closing date shall be on or before blank or within 7 days after title objections have been cured or waived. That creates an automatic extension of closing date for title objections. If seller agrees to extend a closing date through an amendment, but wants that date to be final with no automatic extension, be sure to make sure that the amendment extinguishes that automatic extension. This video podcast came from one of my viewers, and the topic was asked to be discussed by one of my viewers. I hope this was helpful to you. If you have any suggestions for us, please send it to me at tipoftheweek@allegiancetitle.com. Thank you.